Hello and welcome to the latest Lukozer retro game review video. Now, as you can see, this one isn't quite starting the same way as any of my previous ones. There's a good reason for that, and I'll come to that when I actually start the game. But as we have the WinUAE window up, I figured I may as well quickly run through how I have my Amiga emulator set up. It's a combination of ways. There's various ways that I've read online and had suggested by people writing comments on various reviews, particularly the Jimmy White's one when Lemon Tube Amiga came along with some rather handy tips to get the emulator working better. So I haven't changed a huge amount, but what I've got is under Quick Start we have best compatibility selected. Under CPU and FPU we are using the 68000 processor. Sometimes I bump it up to a 68020, and I have the approximate A500/A1200 or cycle exact selected with CPU frequency at 2 times. Those are the only changes there. With the chipset I have the cycle exact full selected. I'm obviously still using the standard OCS. I don't bother with the enhanced chipset. I think OCS is using the Agnes anyway. I don't think there's a huge difference between OCS, Agnes and ECS. With collision detection, obviously I keep that normal, otherwise you're going to be able to cheat too easily in games. Advanced chipset is no changes there. The ROM, it varies depending on which Amiga I'm emulating, but when I'm using the A500, which is the most common one, then I use Kickstart 1.3. With RAM I have 512 of chip and slow memory and 1 megabyte of the fast the Z2s. I could add more, but I don't really need to. Floppy drives, I've got all 4 up there. I haven't done a CD or hard drive for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't really need one, and secondly, I can't remember how to set it up on WinUAE. Like I say, I'm not really likely to ever use it, so I'm not fussed about finding out. Expansion is blank. The RTG boards are blank. Display is obviously set so that it will run at full screen, which is my standard full screen resolution, 2560 by 1440. Sound, okay, it doesn't seem to have saved. I did have the sound down to 80%, which meant that I wasn't being drowned out so much anymore. Joystick mouse settings, so obviously the Windows mouse on port 1, port 2 I actually use the keyboard with cursor keys and right control for fire. The only time I change that is if I'm playing a game where either the cursor keys have to be used, such as Damocles, I have to change it for that one, or if I get the very rare games where it's actually easier to play it with my Xbox 360 port. And that is it as far as my changes. There's not a huge amount of changes to how WinUAE comes along pre-configured. So anyway, let's start her up. And the game that we are reviewing, well, the title will already tell you, but it is Saint Dragon. This is a kind of review that I don't normally do, because I didn't have Saint Dragon back in the day. Indeed, I had never seen it or even heard of it prior to a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, when Gans Teeth did a review of the Commodore 64 version, and after watching it I commented saying that you know, it was as boring and uninspired a shoot 'em up as I'd ever seen, and he suggested I take a look at the Amiga version, which I've done. And the Amiga version has some things about it that made me feel compelled to do a review. So here we have the rather uninspiring title sequence. That's the whole thing. And then we get the reason why I had to start it from the configuration screen, because if you press any key here, it starts the game. Including the Alt key. So I, was always being, always had the game starting as soon as I tried to do the video. I didn't have the chance to do any like build up. Now, one thing that I saw on the title screen that did not fill me with confidence is that while giving the credits for the all of the versions, for some reason they felt it necessary to, show you the credits of the people who did the Spectrum and Commodore 64 and Amstrad versions. It had Amiga and Atari ST lumped into one. So I have a horrible feeling that this is actually an Atari ST version that's just been ported over to the Amiga, and indeed if you look at the graphics here, that just confirms that it definitely is. They look so Atari ST-esque that this is not a custom, a proper out-and-out Amiga version. Sound-wise, it also convinces you that this is definitely an Atari ST port. So right, let's get a game underway then. So this is an arcade conversion, or so I am led to believe. I have never seen or even heard of the arcade original, and I mean, the fact that I'm from Southend and we got loads of arcades here with all the coin-op games, and it never appeared here, so it must be a pretty forgettable arcade game if it never appeared in Southend. So as you can see, you are this dragon type thing, and well, the waves that come along during this level are not particularly challenging, to put it mildly. Oh, fuck it hell, and then I do that almighty fuck up. When you lose a life, you don't lose all of your power-ups, you lose, it's either the last one or the last two power-ups you picked up. Also, I, until now, have never lost a life during level 1, so the fact that I have now shows how distracted I was then, and now I really am fucking it up. Those bloody big cat things that jump up, you can destroy them, but they take so many hits that it's better just to stay out of the fucking way. Sound effects wise, this game is fucking dismal. There are not many sound effects at all. There's the occasional bang when you shoot everything, and you can just about hear your own shots being fired, but apart from that, it's just this very tepid musical soundtrack that just does nothing and is very dull and boring, and therefore is quite apt for the game. I get the impression that the tail of the dragon was this developer's idea of oh, for fuck's sake, was the developer's idea of a new feature, because it's the only thing in the game that is in any way original. There was one thing that Ganstein said in his review of the Commodore 64 version that really did stand out a mile, and that was when he said that he just couldn't get into it as a shoot 'em up. Ganstein is, well, I don't know anybody who is as heavily into shoot 'em ups as he is. So if a shoot 'em up doesn't grab his attention, then it is not likely to be a success in any way. Anyway, I think I may finally be getting close-ish to the boss of level 1. The level goes on for a relatively okay amount of time, whilst also not really providing too much of a challenge, even though I'm making it look like it does, because I'm playing it like shit. Now that thing, there's another power-up. The power-ups appear as these like spheres which you have to shoot, and then you can collect the power-up that's left behind. There are so many of them, and like I say, you don't lose all of your power-ups when you are destroyed, but you get so many of them in this part as we head towards the boss. He's now about to appear, that it means by the time you get here you've got quite a hefty arsenal, and if you lose a life here you get sent back to a stage where you can pick up about another 3, maybe 4 power-ups. So you can become quite well armed by the time you actually reach the boss, and if you lose a life, the next time you face him you can be even more heavily armed. Now, one thing that makes the most of the regular game easy, or easy-ish, is the fact that, well, for one thing, you don't fucking choose to fly into the fucking ground. But it's the fact that you just hold down the fire button and it just constantly fires. So, you know, you're not going through this phase of having, you know, your arm feel like it's going to fucking fall off any second because you're having to hammer away on the fire button. In fact, it's you just essentially have an auto fire. Now, the tail of your dragon can act like a kind of shield. You are only destroyed if you are shot in the head. So you effectively have quite a hefty shield on you at all times if you are positioned correct. Although that said, despite the hefty arsenal that I'm now firing away with rather, and my you know, tail shield, I've never been able to destroy this boss. Mind you, I've only played the game about like 3 times, maybe 4 times I think, because it just doesn't grab me. So this fucking space cow has always remained my nemesis. I mean, it's, well, I don't usually get, I just don't usually try too hard. I mean, the game's, I say, it's not great. I mean, destroying it so that it gets to this stage is not hard, but trying to progress past it is a bit of a pain in the arse. And come on, how many fucking shots does this fucking thing take? Okay, looks like I may have finally destroyed the space cow. Yes, I have. There you go. So despite this being one of my worst goes as far as during the main level itself, I was pretty crap, but I did actually finally destroy the boss. So this is the first time I've seen level 2. The graphics are, well, I mean, they're not very clear. They're certainly not high definition or anything like that. The definition on them is pretty bad. They're very sort of blurry almost, you know. They're not good quality at all. The animation is not much cop. You can really tell that this is, say, an Atari ST port from the fact that you know, the animation is so poor and the graphics are so badly defined. Then there's the sound. I mean, the sound is absolutely forgettable. Oh, fuck it. I think that was my last life, wasn't it? Yeah, fuck it, let's continue. So the sound is atrocious. You know, the quality of the you know, sound effects are, well, it's practically zero. You know, they're very quiet. You know, you're firing away all this sort of weaponry, but it sounds like you're doing nothing. Then there's the music is instantly forgettable, and I mean, this game just does not have any features that make you want to keep playing. It's just an absolute fucking totally forgettable load of fuck all. Now, I don't know if that's because the arcade original was like that, but if it was, then why the fuck would anyone want to bother converting it? And so it could be a fault of the original, you know, the source material, or it could just be a shitty conversion. I suspect it's actually a combination of the two. Because now when you get to areas like this where, you know, there's a lot happening on screen, everything gets very blurred, very jerky, and it's difficult to see what the fucking hell is happening. So you keep getting to the same stage and always losing your life at that stage. So the game is not at all memorable. It's one that you're never really going to have any desire to play more than, you know, a couple of times, and then you'll just think, fuck this, I'm not going to bother with it anymore, and with good reason. So what do I score it? I don't score it much, that's for sure. I will give this game, oh, fuck it, I'll give the game 2.5. It's not so bad that it, you know, deserves a 0 or 1 or anything, but it's not good enough to reach the lofty heights of 3. It does have some merit in places. I like the animation on the dragon, on, you know, on the main figure, and I like the fact that it does give you a chance to progress. You know, it's not so outrageously difficult that you're never going to get anywhere. There are some novelties as far as, you know, the design on the dragon, you know, with the tail and then giving you a bit of a shield. But ultimately it is quite forgettable stuff. There's nothing here to make it stand out. And again, I don't know if that's a fault of the conversion, or if it's you know, this is a problem that the game has, you know, or by design. I mean, when you get sections like that, I can't see how you can, you know, you would know where to move. You know, you've got those random like boulder things shooting out the top of the screen, and it looked like I had a load of missiles that appeared out of nowhere, so you don't have a lot of time to react, and game design like that just, yeah, it's annoying more than anything else. Let me guess, it's the arcade, yes it is. It's the arcade way of entering your name. I can't be bothered. Even having the Japanese writing on the main title page, even that's a fucking cliche now, and it's one I'm sick of the sight of. So there you go, that is Saint Dragon for the Amiga, 2.5 out of 10, pretty forgettable stuff in every department. The novelty of the Dragon doesn't last long at all. It might be worth a go, purely out of curiosity's sake, but other than that, it's not worth wasting your time with. So that brings this review to an end, and we will see you at the next one.